Now, hydropower. Hydropower, most people know that as being the Grand Coulee Dam, the Hoover Dam, Snake River Dam, which, by the way, the NRDC has succeeded in bringing the court case over a period of decades to fruition. It looks like when they hit the Supreme Court in the next year or so, that we will have succeeded in our efforts over a period of decades to get the right to disassemble the Snake River Dam system and set that river wild again. The way that hydropower works is pretty much the way that every other non-photovoltaic system works, which is that you utilize heat to boil water, or you use some other locomotive device. But you're basically turning an electric motor with either mechanical or pneumatic pressure, so that turbine, that magneto, pushes electrons down the line. The only time you're not turning an electric motor to generate power is when you're using photovoltaic, or if you're using a chemical reaction such as occurs inside of a battery. Now, in the case of the big dams, what they've done is they've put gigantic water-driven turbines into large structures that are holding back masses of water, and they vent the water through ports that run past the turbines, turning them at a very high speed in order to drive those magnets in their armature and push the electrons down the line to your house. The problem with large hydro is that it alters the landscape in a very deleterious fashion. It takes wild rivers that have natural cycles of ebb and flow, where they flood a plain surrounding the river, deposit silt, creating topsoil, creating things like the massive Mississippi Delta, and creating natural barriers against weather calamity. Now, back in the 19th century, when we began trying to control the rivers, a fine American, Mark Twain, Sam Clemens, said, and I quote, "If you try to master the great river will come back and destroy your mastery." And he was correct. That's why we have the floods we have all along the Mississippi and along the Ohio, along the Missouri, because we've decided that it was a really good idea to build right on the floodplain, right at the edge of the river, and build walls, and making the river into a sluice and not allowing the water to go up and feed the rest of the land. And that's a problem. You look at the Colorado River, this is, in my opinion, it's an amazing thing that we haven't been at war with the country of Mexico for the past 60 years. Because I cannot think of a time in history where one country used every drop of water in a major river before it got to the country downstream without having the country downstream scream bloody murder and go to war. And that's what happens with the Colorado River. We irrigate desert land in order to grow water-inefficient crops, and in order, but mostly, about 75% of it, to grow grass to feed livestock to lead them to slaughter. This is an extremely inefficient use of water and energy. The whole cattle and sheep growing industry is an extremely inefficient use of water. river that fed a tremendous floodplain and created so much food source for 11 different tribal nations before the Europeans ever arrived here, now produces very little food right on the river itself. It is drained to flush toilets in Phoenix and Los Angeles, and to power fountains in the middle of the desert in Las Vegas, and then not a single drop if you go to the mouth of the Colorado on the Sea of Cortez between Baja, Mexico, and the mainland, or Baja, California, and the mainland. You will find that there is not even a trickle reaching the mouth of the Colorado River. It is a dry bed. It's very sad. Now, on the other hand, there are some viable hydro concepts that are truly good alternative energy solutions. One of them is the concept of the micro hydro dam. Not really a dam. The micro hydro system works in a number of ways. There is the tethered platform method. That's where you have a paddle wheel sort of turbine under the water that is part and parcel of a barge, a small barge that is floating on the river itself. And that paddle wheel, of course, turns an electric motor, which generates electricity. And you're able to then run the wire right up to the local dwelling or local community along the river. And that's perfectly viable. It doesn't change the flow pattern of the river. The plant raises and lowers with the river level and does not suffer damage from flood. And overall, it's pretty much a win-win, fairly inexpensive. For individual installation, there is the micro hydro paddle system, where there's a spring-loaded paddle that is along the shore with you basically put the micro hydro paddle generator on a platform attached to the shore or along the shore with the paddle reaching out. And as the water flows, it pushes the paddle. When the paddle reaches its limit, there's energy stored in either a spring or in a flywheel that then brings the paddle back to its starting position, so that as it is pushed forward by the water, that turns the electric motor to generate electricity, and then as it springs back, that also turns the electric motor. So that's sort of a kind of regenerative braking facility that is helping generate the electricity there. Now, with that sort of a system, it's necessary to have a battery storage system because it is a very passive system. And one of the things that happens when you're using a system that changes speeds or has a passive, low-speed generative nature is the need to store one's electricity, either in capacitors or batteries, so that when it's able then to draw